and the street was apparently pretty narrow.
It sounds more like it's an alley than a street to me.
Yeah, that's kind of my sense. It's like an alleyway. It's not. Yeah, it's an alleyway basically, but it's a fair. It's a street that people take to walk and things like that. It's not like a weird dead end alleyway or anything.
Right. It's not full of dumpsters and rats and all of that.
It's just more of a walkway than it is a. Anyway, so that's a little odd that they would have not seen her.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's unlikely that she could have just passed them without them noticing or anything like that. Anyways, Tanner said that she saw a man with a child in his arms cross the street just ahead of her. We'll get more on that later, but she checked in with her kids and then returned to dinner. At 9:30, Kate had intended to check on her kids, but one of the Topless Seven, not other Topless Seven, said that he was going to go check on his kids, so he'd look in on theirs too, because, hey, the door's unlocked, so he can just peek in, no problem. It's important to note that these checks weren't necessarily to make sure that... They were the kind of checks you do when you've got kids who maybe wake up in the middle of the night and start playing when they're not supposed to. Not the kind of checks that you do when you've left your apartment unlocked in a weird place.
And you're paranoid about your kids getting stolen.
Yeah.
Well, and I've got to say, initially, that's what I took from when Jerry said, well, I swear I shut that door and then it was open. Mm-hmm. That was my initial reaction, is that Madeline must have gotten up.
Yeah, maybe she had to use the bathroom or something.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
I mean, not to pull us off track, but just...
No. I mean, I think that's a very easy thing, and we should definitely keep that in mind, that you've got a kid who's probably pretty potty trained at that point, may wake up in the middle of the night, have to go to the bathroom, is not going to close the door all the way, all of that sort of stuff. It's unlikely that she would have woken up just a half an hour after they'd put her down, but I guess she had been asleep for about an hour and a half at that point.
Yeah.
So she may have. We do need to keep that in mind for
plausible.
Sure. Absolutely. But as I said, it's important to note that this is the kind of check you do to make sure your kid isn't up and playing. Matthew Oldfield was the one he was one of the Topless Seven. He was the one who did this check.
Oh, in place of
Kate.
For Kate. Yeah.
Yeah. And he said that he didn't hear any noises coming from the room, but the door was once again wide open, so he pulled it shut without looking in the room. Right? Because he didn't hear a kid playing or, making noises or anything in distress, so he just thought, oh, they're fine, they're sleeping, I'm not going to bother to actually look.
When Jerry went earlier and pulled the door shut, did he actually look to see if the kids...
He said that he saw the kids.
Okay.
Yeah, he said that he looked and that Maddie was in her bed at that time.
Okay.
But that's what he said.
Yeah.
In fairness. At about 10, Kate did actually do another check. She entered through the patio doors and noticed that the door to the kids' room was once again wide open. And when she attempted to close it, it slammed shut on her, like there was a draft in the room maybe. A note, again, to mention that it seems unlikely had the door not slammed, Kate would have actually looked in the room.
She didn't look in the room?
Well, I don't think she was planning on it. I think it was kind of like when Jerry did his, or I guess it was when Matthew did his. She just went to close the door. She didn't seem to actually look in the room.
Now that's kind of inexplicable.
Okay, why in the hell are you going to look in your apartment at your kids if all you're doing is to go in and stand and go
and listen?
I don't hear anything. Wouldn't you just peek in, see if they're there, and then wander back? Because isn't that why you're going to check on them?
You want to make sure they're not getting into trouble, not to make sure that they're there.
Okay,
because
I don't have kids, and I haven't ever dealt with young children, but to me, make sure that somebody's not just sitting there fidgeting and is actually asleep.
So yes, I agree. Every time I've ever taken care of kids, overnight or otherwise, if they're supposed to be sleeping, I will actually put eyes on them.
Yeah, well, there's that. But also, doors slamming on their own like that, doesn't that raise suspicions right there?
Well, but that's why, right? That's what I'm saying, is that I'm just making the note that she saw the doors open and she thought, oh, I will close that door. And she went to close it and it slammed, so she opened it up and realized that Maddie wasn't there anymore.
Oh, she opened it. Okay.
Yeah, after it slammed shut on her. I was just mentioning that it seems that her intention was simply to close the door, and had it not slammed, I don't know that she would have opened it.
Yeah.
Not to, be libeling anybody, but it doesn't seem like she would have.
No, it seems like her intention was to make sure there was no noise and then get back to dinner.
Yeah. On the bed was Maddie's cuddle cat and blanket, but not not Maddie. And Kate ran back to the restaurant screaming.
And the window was open, correct?
The window was open.
And the window had
shutters in the
a
window
security
were-
shutter, correct?
I don't know if it was a security shutter, but it was a shutter. The pictures I've seen, because I've seen pictures of the shutters, they look like they're just shutters. They don't look like they're security measure of any kind.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Kate ran back to the restaurant screaming, "They've taken her." Of note, right? She's screaming, "They've taken her."
Yeah.
Whoever they are.
Yeah. And then at 10:10, Oldfield, Matthew, the guy who did the check right before Maddie was taken.
Earlier check, yeah.
Or maybe she was taken, who knows. Was sent to reception to have the resort call the police. And at 10:30, the resort activated its, quote, missing child search protocol. The staff of about 60 people looked for Maddie until about 4:30 a.m. And apparently, at first, everybody kind of thought that Maddie had just woken up and wandered off.
That's understandable.
Good reason to lock your kids in the apartment.
Yeah, it is understandable. However, it created some problems. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 National Guard officers showed up at 11:10 p.m. They searched briefly, but soon decided, oh, hey, actually, we need the criminal police here. So the criminal police were alerted, and they arrived at about midnight.
And this is the National Guard. These guys are Portugal National Guard.
Portuguese National Guard.
Okay.
And then at about 2 a.m., 2 patrol dogs showed up, and then not until 8 a.m. did 4 search and rescue dogs show up.
Yeah. These are dogs with sensitive snouts, right?
Yes. The patrol dogs, I think, are just kind of to smell. I don't have a good sense on what they're good
They're
for.
a canine unit.
Yeah,
They're just canine units, yeah. But
Yeah, they're
then the
supposed to
search
bite
and
the hell out of
rescue dogs,
somebody, you know?
the search and rescue dogs would have been meant to smell, but not until 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And this is where
That's a
we
big gap.
encounter the biggest problem of this case. Really, is that everyone other than the Tapas 7 and the McCanns seem to have thought that Maddie just woke up and wandered off. So the area wasn't treated like a crime scene at all. In fact, about 20 people accessed the room that Maddie had been taken from before it was closed off, thus probably ruining almost all of the evidence that would have existed. The room was never actually secured, and though it laid empty for about a month after the abduction, the resort rented the room out before forensic evidence was taken in August. This room was rented out before forensic evidence was taken.
Kind of muddies the trail, yeah.
Wait, let me ask a question that I think you might have answered, but how long was it before the cops decided this was something other than a wandered off kid?
I think it was at 2 a.m. when the dogs arrived. They decided.
And it took them over a month to get their forensic guys in there?
Yeah, they actually had some fingerprints taken the day after, but you can see the picture. You should look it up online.
Oh, yeah, there's stomps. People were trooping through there like mad.
Oh, no, the guy who was taking fingerprints wasn't wearing gloves. He was dusting for prints without gloves on.
This is a... Okay, that wasn't the phrase I was going to use. It's a crap show, is what it is.
It is.
It's a cluster.
Yeah, a bit of a
Good
cluster.
Lord.
Oh, wait. Okay, so it gets better.
Oh, are you sure?
The exterior of the building wasn't cordoned off at all, right? So there was a crowd that showed up that was walking all over the area that the abductor, if there was an abductor, would have taken, like from the window.
If he'd gone out the window, then there would have been footprints there.
So they all stomped all over that. Also, it wasn't until 10 a.m. that police put up roadblocks. And let's be fair, right? If you've taken a child and you're about to beat feet out of town, it's not going to take you 12 hours. You're going to do it immediately. So putting roadblocks up 12 hours after a kid has gone missing, not so helpful. Furthermore, it took Interpol 5 days to issue a global missing persons alert.
Well, that's awesome.
5 days. You can fly anywhere in the world in 5 days. Easily.
In a day.
In a day. In 12 hours.
Yeah.
Not really in 12 hours, but, that gives you ample time to cover your tracks and cover your tracks and cover your tracks. You get on a plane, you get on another plane, you take a car,
Or
whatever.
Or as simple as you drive out of town, you drive to another town, you hang out for a day, you go to another town. By the time they come through, this trail is ice cold.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I doubt that this guy actually got on a plane with his with the stolen kid.
I suspect not.
No.
But
I suspect he probably lived in Portugal and just drove on home where he had a basement, with chains in the walls and all kinds of shit. Yeah, I know.
As you can imagine, the media grabbed onto this one pretty quick, obviously. And as you kind of want that to happen with missing persons reports like this, because the more that missing child's face is out there in the world, the more likely it is that somebody's going to see, if the kid is out in the world, the more likely it is that somebody's going to see that kid and think, oh, hey, I know, I've seen that kid before. I'll call the police and report that I saw that kid. Mm-hmm. It's the same reason that you send out Amber Alerts in America.
It's a good thing.
Right? We get Amber Alerts sometimes for, abducted or missing children 3 states away because who knows, they might be there. Who knows, that car might have made it here.
Super effective.
They're really effective.
They're highly annoying because it's from several states away, or they say it was a white Subaru and every guy in a white Subaru is getting pulled over by the cops. So they're angering a lot of people, but they have good results.
And besides which, I hate people that drive white Subarus, so I think that's a good thing.
Well, no, I think that Steve brings up a good point, is that because the media did grab onto this so quickly, there were a lot of sightings reported. You can look at pictures of Maddie, and with the one exception of a very outstanding feature, she kind of just looks like a very cute little white girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
she does.
Nothing remarkable, yeah.
Well, there is one remarkable thing.
Yeah.
And I think that we'll talk about that in a second instead of talking about it now.
Okay. All right, sounds good.
Actually, no, let's talk about it now.
Okay.
This is the posters that circulated in Portugal. I was hoping to find a good picture of to use as the photo for this mystery, but there aren't any really good pictures of it. But the slogan was "Look," because Maddie, in her right eye, Steve's making a little thinking face, in her right eye has a tear in her iris that makes it look like she just has...
It's a discoloration.
It's a it's a discoloration.
Looks like a black stripe.
It looks like a black stripe through her eye.
Yeah.
Iris, not, full eye, but through her iris, and that's very distinctive. That's not something you can hide.
No.
That's not something that you can fake.
Oh, no, not at all. Well, it's not something that a witness is going to really notice from more than a couple of feet away.
That's true, but that was the campaign, was "Look."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
And actually the O's looked like her eyes, because if she was out in public, all you had to do was look in her eyes, and you see that, and you're like, oh, hey, I know what that kid is. So that's fair, but it is true that as long as you keep even her eyes hidden or whatever, it's pretty easy to conceal. It's not like half of her body was a birthmark or something.
Yeah.
She was a tattooed 3-year-old. That wouldn't happen.
That'd have been weird.
Yeah. So here's another thing. Aside from the weird handling of the crime scene, in Portugal, they have anything that's a criminal investigation is constrained by what's known as a secrecy clause, which means that there are no official updates or press conferences or suspects or witness names or anything, which is a problem.
Yeah.
One journalist was quoted as saying it created a leak system instead of a watertight system, which I think is probably true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's if the media is scrambling for any details, they're going to offer money to get those details. And, of course, a cop who's got, an okay wage, just make a couple of bucks on the side. Mm-hmm. Here's a detail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe that's,
maybe that's why.
Maybe the police actually, supported the passage of this thing just so they could make a little money on the side.
It made the whole thing a freaking media circus, though, was the problem.
Well, actually, it's interesting to me, the McCanns... You may or may not know. If you know the story, the McCanns were suspects. They still are suspects in a lot of people's minds. They've officially been cleared, but again, we're not there yet. But one of the biggest, weirdest reasons to me that the Portuguese police deemed the McCanns to be suspects is because they refused to honor this silence code and did talk to the media. And because of that, the Portuguese police said, oh, well, clearly you're suspects because you're trying to hide something. They accused them of turning the investigation into what Steve said, a media circus.
And that's just a different cultural approach to the whole situation is what it is.
It's a different cultural approach, but it's also, of the things that the McCanns did, this is one of the ones I understand the most. Sure. Because if your kid goes missing, you want her face frickin' everywhere.
Absolutely.
Everywhere. And how do you do that? The media. And turns out, actually, this media circus was so large that photos of Maddie were literally the most reproduced image of the decade. That is not a lie. That is an actual statistic. Photos of Madeleine McCann were the most reproduced image of the decade.
What was number 2?
I don't know. I would assume something to do with, like, 9/11 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, or something having to do with nudity and celebrities. But, yeah.
In July of 2007, and as a side note, this case moves so slow.
Yeah, they're still investigating this.
In May 3rd.
In
No,
2006.
2007.
2007? Oh, was it 2007?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In May of 2007, early May 3rd, 2007 is when she disappeared. So in July of 2007, somebody thought, oh, hey, you know what we should do is get some sniffer dogs from Britain. Let's bring them over. Maybe they'll be able to find something. Which is a good idea. Should have happened earlier. I don't know that sniffer dogs are so good that they could do anything a few months later, but sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
It's like, I mean, so many other scents and people have trampled over the crime scene and everything else.
Yeah.
How can they possibly do anything?
One of them, named Keela, was trained to alert to traces of human blood. And the other one, Eddie, was what's called an enhanced victim recovery dog, which basically alerts to human cadavers. And it should be noted they can't alert to specific cadavers and specific blood, just the presence of human blood or decaying human bodies.
They're dogs.
They're dogs.
They're dogs.
And there are some dogs, bloodhounds can trace the scent of a human being living, within a couple hours and things like that. These are not that kind of dogs.
These are search dogs.
They're identification dogs. They can alert to the presence of blood, and ostensibly, at that point, somebody can take a sample of that area and test it and then find what they can find from that. Hopefully. The dogs were taken to 2 beaches that were close to the resort, the house of one of the suspects and many of the apartments in the resort. The only place that the dogs gave alerts was in the McCann's apartment, 5A.
Cadaver dog, let's say if there had been a dead body in an apartment and it had been gone for 2 or 3 months.
It's my understanding that the dog would have been able to identify that.
Really?
Yeah, because it's a search. He's a victim recovery dog, so he ostensibly, I don't know. I keep saying ostensibly. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm given to understand that, and I could be wrong, but I think that he would have been able to smell any presence of cadaver,
of dead body.
Yeah.
But the thing that's weird about that is that I don't want to stomp all over your story.
No, stomp away.
Some people, like for example, the Portuguese police, for example, accused the McCanns of sedating Madeleine and accidentally overdosing her and killing her. Another theory that they have is she died accidentally in an accident.
We're not there yet, but yeah.
They tried to cover that up. The thing about it is, and of course, when you die, you're a cadaver right away. Mm-hmm. But you don't start smelling like a cadaver for quite a while. Mm-hmm. I mean, it takes a while for you to actually smell like a cadaver. Mm-hmm. Which is why I have a little problem with the dog. I mean, I just can't figure out why this dog would have gone on high alert.
I agree.
Yeah.
In this situation, I agree. I think the thought of bringing him along was that, they took them to the beaches and things like that.
Looking
they thought,
for a place where the body might have been stashed. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think the intention was for him to alert in the apartment, but he did.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Which is a little weird. You don't necessarily want there to be a cadaver dog saying, hey, there's the smell of a cadaver in your apartment.
Behind the sofa.
Behind the sofa,
Could there have been a dead rat in the wall, maybe?
It's human cadavers only.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There goes that.
Wow.
Ha! Stomping all over your theory now.
I like the dead rat theory. I'm sticking with it.
Anyways, the dogs did both alert behind the sofa. That is an interesting point. Again, I don't know what that means, but it means something to some people. In August, again, this thing moves real slow. Seems like time would be of the essence to find a missing little girl, but fine, whatever. In August, the police took several items from the McCanns, both from when Maddie had been alive and after she disappeared. Clothes, the cuddle cat. Kate had borrowed a Bible from one of her friends after the disappearance. Things like that. Eddie and Keela were put in a room with these items, and at least one of the dogs, possibly both of them, alerted to all of the items. It's not published which one did. It's possible both of them did. That's interesting, right? Because it's items from pre-disappearance and post-disappearance. The McCann's lawyers argue, I think maybe validly, although also maybe not validly, that because the McCanns were both physicians, they would have encountered dead bodies and blood in their line of work, and therefore could have transferred it to those items.
Yeah, that's a very valid point.
I think it's a valid point, though I don't know why necessarily when you encounter blood in your workplace, you don't wash it off. Instead, you take it and put it, on your kid's cuddle cat.
Well, yeah,
for
I know.
instance.
Yeah, you wipe your hands
or
on
a
the
kid.
cuddle
Yeah,
cat.
sure. A kid like bleeds on it or something. I think that it's fair. I wish I knew which one
Yeah, the presence
alerted. Also,
Yeah.
I don't really want to go see a physician who's like dealing with dead bodies all the time.
Well, and the thing about it is when you're dealing with a dead body, you put on gloves and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, you're not necessarily going to go touch a Bible or like your disappeared kid's blanket.
Yeah, and
But-
also a trace or two of blood is not a big. People cut themselves all the time. I mean, so the existence of blood is not necessarily sinister.
Which is why I wish I knew which dog alerted.
Yeah, I was just saying, because if it's the cadaver dog, that makes it even stranger. Yeah, because I agree. The dog that's going to smell blood, we can see very mundane reasons. But the cadaver dog, being a doctor, if you have to occasionally go to the morgue, doesn't mean that you're covered in dead people's stank and then
Yeah.
roll around all of your possessions
You shouldn't
while
be.
carrying that.
Well, let's continue because it gets a little more interesting. I do have more information about some other stuff.
Okay.
Eddie and Keela were then taken to underground parking garage that had the McCann's car and another one of the suspects' car, and then a lot of cars that weren't,
Now-
control cars.
Did the suspect car? Did police actually put that there?
Yes.
It wasn't just randomly parked.
No. They did like a lineup of cars basically
Okay.
for the dogs. And Eddie, the cadaver dog, alerted outside of the McCann's car and into the trunk of their car. And I couldn't even find if the McCanns had driven to their holiday or not. But the fact that a human cadaver dog would be alerting to anything around a car is suspicious and
Little bit.
weird.
A little bit.
I do want to just go ahead and say, I have not seen these videos. I'm just taking on faith that this stuff happened, and there are some reports from some skeptics that say that the handlers can be seen directing the dogs to alert in these areas.
Oh, really?
But it's
so
not
tainting.
widespread. Those are not widespread beliefs, but there are some. I want to make sure that makes it into this episode, that there is some speculation that the handlers are saying, oh, this is the McCann's car. Although I don't think that the handlers knew whose car was whose. It seems like it would be poor police work if you were going to do a lineup of cars and say, handlers, just so you know, these are the cars.
Where the suspect car? So these folks are British.
Yeah.
So they would have had a car with a British license plate on it.
Most
Was
likely.
the suspect?
Most likely, don't you think they flew there and rented a car?
Not necessarily, because it's actually. I know Spain is not that far away, and I know
They
people.
could have taken like a ferry.
Yeah.
It probably would be
But-
cheaper to rent a car than take your car over on a ferry. Really?
But let's just say they took their car.
Okay.
They have a car that has a British license plate. Now this is again saying it's their personal car. Suspect. Was it a local?
Yeah, he was a
So
local.
he would have had a car with local license on it.
Yeah, and again, I don't know. I couldn't find out where this lineup was done because it was the British police that did the lineup, but I don't know if it was done in Portugal or where. This is one of those frustrations where I wish there was more information, but I can't find it.
It sounds
I'm
like
sure
a-
it's in the original police reports, but I can't requisition those because this is still an open case.
It's still secret, but it sounds like, though, Eddie and Keela were flown to Portugal for their investigation. So
That's
it
my-
sounds like it probably.
Yeah,
took
so
place
I
in
don't know
Portugal.
if it was a rental car or their car. But again, I would say that a cadaver dog alerting outside of your car is not a great thing.
No, that would be bad news.
Even if it's just a rental, right?
Well, if it's a rental, then probably the previous renter probably murdered somebody and stuffed the body in the trunk, and it's nothing
Yeah.
to do with you.
Yep. Okay, fine. So whatever, fine. On August 15th, the Times reported that forensic evidence said that the blood found in the bedroom that Maddie had disappeared from was that of a man.
I don't think we had mentioned that there had been blood found there.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Um,
There was blood found there.
It was a man.
It was a man's. It was Keela had alerted to that blood as well, and that
So
was a man's blood.
Obviously, there was a fight. There was a struggle.
There
Maddie
was a
fought.
struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah, she fought tooth and nail.
Yeah. She grabbed her K-bar knife and
Yeah.
slashed, but yeah.
There,
Kept it in Eeyore.
Yeah.
There was some DNA testing done, but I'm not really going to get into it because I've deemed it very unreliable. If you should look at it if you want. They did a really controversial DNA test that's highly, highly sensitive, and the forensic
That
scientists...
was the stuff that was found in the car, in the trunk of the car.
Yeah, and the forensic scientists that did the testing said it was super unconclusive, and the media said it was 100% it was Maddie's DNA.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not even going to go there because I trust those scientists way more than I trust the media.
Yeah, but there's nothing unusual about her DNA being in the trunk anyway. Because I mean, when we were all kids, if we were bad and we were on a car trip, the parents would always just throw
I
you in
don't
the
feel like
trunk.
I need to know about your childhood, Joe.
Oh, okay, that didn't happen
Joe,
to
that's
you.
actually not
No.
normal.
No, it's
not?
No,
No.
not at all.
Holy crap!
Sorry, dude.
No, okay.
So, can we talk about suspects or theories or whatever? It's suspects this time, not theories. Can we talk about that? First?
Yeah.
Can we just go ahead? Cool. We're not going to talk about all of them. In 2013, the Metropolitan Police of London said that they had 38 persons of interest, so we are obviously not going to talk about all of them.
Please.
Nope,
Yeah.
not going to happen. The first suspect or theory or something that we're going to talk about is the Tanner sighting. You guys remember Jane Tanner?
Yeah.
Don't
Well,
make that
office.
face at me. Jane Tanner, yeah, she was one of the top of 7. She was the one who said that she totally saw Jerry talking to that dude, but neither of them saw
Oh,
her.
the reliable lady.
Yeah,
Got
the
it.
totally
Yeah.
reliable one, yeah.
But besides seeing Jerry, she saw a man.
Yeah, she said she saw a man carrying a child ahead of her when she was heading to check on her own kids. She said that the man was white, dark-haired, about 5'7", and of Southern European or Mediterranean appearance, 35 to 40 years old, wearing gold or beige trousers and a dark jacket, but she didn't see his face, so I don't know how she knew all those things.
Yeah, we've
Well-
talked about how reliable memory is before
Mm-hmm.
in cases like this.
And it
In
was
other
dark.
words, it's completely unreliable.
Yeah, it was
but
dark, but okay. So he apparently did not look like a tourist. He looked like he was a local, and she claimed that he was carrying a barefooted child who was wearing light-colored PJs with a floral print and ruffle cuffs. The description does match the PJs that Maddie was wearing at the time. That's fair. The police said that that sighting was actually of another British tourist who was picking his kid up from the kids club and carrying her home. She had been sleeping. And in fact,
Oh, because like we talked about earlier, you could leave them
you
there
could leave
later.
them there, yeah.
Got it.
And they did the responsible thing when they went to dinner and they sent their kid to the kids club and had them sleep there while they were waiting for them to be done with dinner. But they actually did a reproduction of this scene. Eventually they found the man and did a photo shoot with him in the clothes that he was wearing that night, carrying his daughter in the PJ she was wearing, and it looks exactly like that. It looks exactly like that.
So we basically just nipped that one right in the bud.
Yeah, the man actually later sued for libel against Jane Tanner and the media. It's generally accepted that this is a really bad theory.
How did he do in his libel suit against Jane Tanner?
He did pretty good. He won.
Against her?
He won against all of them.
Yeah, but she didn't libel him.
That's fair.
Yeah,
She didn't, but I think he won.
She saw what she saw.
Anyways,
I mean,
the even more important thing about this is that most people say that she didn't actually even report this until November 16th.
oh, that's strange.
There are some other reports that say that she did actually report this immediately, but the police didn't really reveal the information until late May, and I couldn't figure out which one was true. The more widely spread one is that she didn't reveal this until in November, but again, I don't know. I don't have access to the police reports. I also don't speak Portuguese, so I wouldn't be able to read them even if I did have access to them.
How about Google Translate?
It's really bad with Portuguese.
It's bad.
This is actually true. I used to have a friend who spoke Portuguese, and I could never actually translate stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, the only reason that I thought this was interesting, or anybody thought this was interesting initially, was because they thought that maybe it gave a time frame for when Maddie went missing.
Because we don't really know exactly when
No.
she was no longer in the apartment.
What's accepted now is that she was taken just like moments before Kate discovered that she was taken. And we'll talk about this more in a second.
Okay.
Actually, we're about to talk about it, but I just wanted to also mention, because Jane said that she saw the man at 9:15, but I don't think that was a good time frame. We're going to talk about the Smith sightings now, because it was another report of a man carrying a child, and this time it was by people who are not part of the Tapas 7. nor were they even staying at the resort, as far as I can tell. They were on vacation from Ireland. Their names were Martin and Mary Smith. Just talk about... And apparently Portugal, like, super popular with people from, like, the British Isles and the UK, and oh my gosh, I feel like I just, like, I'm gonna get in so much trouble because I don't think Ireland is part of the UK or the British Isles. It's not. I think I might have just
it's part of the Isles,
gotten really offensive. I'm
Portugal
sorry, everyone.
and Spain are indeed huge destinations for the British because it's close, it's cheap, and it's not wet and cold, which is what the UK is.
Yeah.
So that area is chock full of tourists.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is. And by the way, I believe Ireland is part of the UK.
The United Kingdom?
Yeah.
Northern Ireland is.
Well, yeah, Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, it doesn't matter.
We'll cover that card.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Martin and Mary reported seeing a man at about 10 p.m. carrying a child towards the beach. It was an odd time to be doing that, but okay, fine, whatever. They thought that the girl was probably 3 or 4 years old. She was wearing light-colored PJs and had blonde hair and pale skin. The man, they said, was probably in his mid-30s. He was about 5'7" to 5'9". He was slim, had short brown hair, and was wearing light pants. They said that the man looked like he was a local, and he didn't seem comfortable carrying the child. And I've always thought that these sightings could be the same man, but they cited this person... Cited?
Yeah.
Saw? They saw this person
Sighted is good. Yeah.
further away than would, the initial sighting 45 minutes later. He wasn't 45 minutes away. So it probably wasn't the same person unless he was just walking circles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got this kid. I took it from an apartment.
I don't know what to do
where I
with
am. I just keep walking in circles. Yeah, I don't see that happening.
So here's the thing that's interesting to me. And yes, I'm setting myself up for my favorite theory, in fairness. Both sightings, but particularly the EFIT images that were created from the Smith sighting.
EFIT?
Oh, okay. EFITs are electronic facial identification techniques. They're basically forensic drawings, but digital.
Oh, so instead of a sketch artist, you've got a digital artist.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Makes total sense.
Yeah, they both look, that one particularly looks a lot like Jerry McCann to me. And I think Steve and I talked about this a little bit before we started recording. And I think what he has to say is fair. But I also want to mention that the chain of evidence is pretty good on this because Mary and Martin, as far as I can tell, hadn't seen Jerry prior to creating this EFIT sketch, and also I don't think that they knew that Maddie was missing before they reported this.
When did they make
sighting.
this sketch?
This sketch?
Yeah.
It was like within a couple of hours, I think. I don't know for sure.
Okay.
But it's just, that's what I'm given to understand, is that they hadn't seen Jerry.
Okay. Well, and this is what you and I were talking about earlier, is Jerry is not a super unique looking individual. He's got a very common set of facial traits, and the guy that's in this EFIT matches the appearance of about a half dozen people at my office.
But also matches Jerry.
Somewhat.
Somewhat. See, and that's the perfect point. Joe just hit it on the head. Somewhat.
Yeah.
It's not as if it's a dead ringer.
Well,
And I understand that
in
it's a
fairness, that
sketch.
EFIT could be a dead ringer for a lot of people.
You
Thank
you.
No, it absolutely could, but it also could be a dead ringer for him.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's, it could be.
I just want to put that out.
Absolutely, yeah. It could be a lot of people, but it could be him.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, definitely. But there's a lot of differences when you look at it, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I mean, the jawline, the eyebrows, they're way different.
Yeah, that's true.
Hairline's a bit different.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's dark.
Yeah, true that.
I guess if